Hello guys, welcome back to Basketball Fan. Right now the Indiana Fever fan base is absolutely exploding after Cheryl Reeve's latest press conference, and honestly, the conversation around coaching philosophies in the WNBA is getting more intense by the day. Cheryl Reeve came into that media session sounding completely confident, completely in control, and fully aware of how elite talent should be developed. The biggest thing that stood out immediately was how direct she was when talking about Olivia Miles. There was no confusion, no overcomplicated explanation, and no attempt to spread the attention across 10 different players. She focused directly on Olivia Miles, on her strengths, on her instincts, and on how to maximize what already makes her special. And when you compare that to what's happening with the Indiana Fever right now, it's easy to understand why fans are frustrated. One of the biggest ongoing conversations surrounding the Fever has been Stephanie White moving away from the pick-and-roll offense that made the team so dangerous in the first place. And honestly, it still makes absolutely no sense. When Indiana was playing their best basketball, the connection between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston in the pick-and-roll was elite. Defenses were struggling every single night trying to contain it. Caitlin Clark's court vision combined with Aaliyah Boston's finishing ability created one of the most dangerous offensive actions in the league. That two-player chemistry completely transformed the Fever offense into something explosive and difficult to stop. So naturally fans started asking one simple question: why move away from it? Why abandon one of the most effective plays in basketball when it was clearly working? It's the kind of decision that leaves people confused because great coaching is usually about building around your stars, not forcing your stars into a system that limits their strengths. And that's exactly why Cheryl Reeve's comments hit so hard online. You could hear the difference in philosophy immediately. She talked about Olivia Miles with genuine understanding. Reeve explained how the pick-and-roll game naturally fits Olivia's skill set, but she also went much deeper than that. She started discussing tempo, pace, manipulation, and court vision, and that's where things became really interesting. Cheryl Reeve explained that some of the hardest things to teach young players entering the professional level are tempo and pacing. According to Reeve, Olivia Miles already possesses those instincts naturally. She described how Olivia manipulates defenders by changing speeds constantly, slowing down, speeding up, exploding at the perfect moment, and forcing defenses into impossible decisions. Reeve emphasized that defenders never truly know what Olivia is about to do because she controls the rhythm of the game so well. That ability to manipulate defenses with pace and vision is something many coaches spend years trying to teach players, yet Reeve openly admitted that some of it simply cannot be taught. She called Olivia Miles gifted and compared her instincts to those of generationally skilled players. That's massive praise coming from one of the most respected coaches in basketball. Reeve even admitted that while players can improve shooting and ball handling through repetition, that natural court manipulation and vision often comes from instinct. She basically said Olivia was born with it. And honestly, hearing a coach speak that clearly about what makes a player special is refreshing because it shows true understanding of elite talent. Cheryl Reeve even joked about Olivia saying soccer helped develop her court awareness, laughing that she also played soccer, but it definitely didn't create that same level of court vision for her. Moments like that made the press conference feel genuine and relaxed, but underneath the humor was a very serious point. Olivia Miles possesses a rare basketball mind. Meanwhile, Minnesota continues finding ways to stay competitive. The Lynx are sitting at 4-2 and quietly putting together solid basketball despite all the criticism Cheryl Reeve receives online. Whether people love her or hate her, one thing nobody can deny is that her teams consistently compete. Minnesota has picked up wins against teams like the Chicago Sky, Toronto Tempo, Dallas Wings, and Phoenix Mercury while splitting games and staying resilient throughout the early schedule. Cheryl Reeve also spent time discussing roster challenges and player development. She talked about how difficult it has been operating with limited depth on the roster and explained the league's 72-hour timeline following waiver decisions. Reeve mentioned how thin Minnesota has been on one side of the roster and admitted it's been a real challenge trying to manage the rotation. Still, Despite the difficulties, she continued emphasizing chemistry, communication, and familiarity as the foundation for team growth. One thing that stood out during the press conference was how Cheryl Reeve corrected the idea that Minnesota is a young team. She pointed out that most of the starting group actually has significant experience, with several players already familiar with the Lynx system. According to Reeve, communication is the key factor speeding up chemistry development. She explained that when players constantly communicate on both offense and defense, everything becomes easier. But when teams stop talking, every aspect of basketball becomes harder. That kind of leadership and clarity is exactly why so many people respect Cheryl Reeve, even if they don't always agree with her personality or coaching style. She understands team structure, player strengths, and how to create systems that maximize talent. And right now, Fever fans are looking at Indiana wondering why their coaching staff hasn't fully embraced the exact formula that already proved successful with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Because at the end of the day, basketball is not always about reinventing the wheel. Sometimes the best move is simply leaning harder into what already works. And judging by the reactions online, a lot of fans believe Cheryl Reeve completely exposed that reality during this press conference. Stay tuned because the conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White, Olivia Miles, and the future of these WNBA teams is only getting bigger from here. And you already know Basketball Fan will be here covering all of it. Now, another interesting part of Cheryl Reeve's press conference came when reporters started asking questions about the developmental roster situation and whether Minnesota could potentially move one of their current players into a developmental spot. Cheryl Reeve responded honestly and directly, making it very clear that the current setup simply is not sustainable long-term. She explained that because the team has already been forced to use both developmental players so early in the season, they are basically burning through those available games far too quickly. Reeve admitted that at the current pace, it would become impossible to manage properly throughout a full 44-game schedule. She then broke down the possible solutions, explaining that Minnesota could move a player into a developmental role, bring in someone from outside the organization, or make another roster adjustment to avoid overusing those spots. Once again, what stood out was how calm, confident, and transparent Cheryl Reeve sounded while addressing the media. She didn't dodge questions. She didn't sound uncertain. She spoke like a coach who completely understands both her roster and her system. And honestly, that confidence becomes even more noticeable when you compare it to the way Stephanie White has been handling media conversations surrounding the Indiana Fever. Every time Stephanie White talks about Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever fans seem to walk away more confused than before. There always feels like there's mixed messaging, awkward wording, or comments that just don't fully connect with the fan base. Meanwhile, Cheryl Reeve sounds direct and intentional every single time she discusses Olivia Miles. She focuses on the player's strengths, explains exactly why she believes in her, and makes sure everyone understands what makes that player special. That difference in communication is exactly why Fever fans have started comparing these two situations so heavily online. It almost feels like night and day listening to the two coaches speak. Cheryl Reeve sounds polished, experienced, and completely comfortable talking about her stars, while Stephanie White, despite years of coaching experience, sometimes comes across uncertain during these press conferences. And when you combine that with the ongoing frustration surrounding Indiana moving away from the Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston pick-and-roll offense, fans are paying even closer attention now. Because at the end of the day, people just want to see coaches fully embrace what makes their stars elite. The pick and roll between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston was one of the most dangerous offensive weapons in basketball, and many fans still don't understand why Indiana moved away from it in the first place. Cheryl Reeve's comments about Olivia Miles only intensified that conversation because she openly discussed building around a player's natural gifts instead of limiting them. That's why so many people online are now comparing the Minnesota Lynx situation to what's happening in Indiana. So now the big question becomes this: should Stephanie White start adjusting her approach both on the court and in these media appearances? Or are fans overreacting to these press conferences? Let me know your thoughts down below because this entire conversation surrounding Cheryl Reeve, Stephanie White, Caitlin Clark, Olivia Miles, and the Indiana Fever offense is getting bigger by the day. And you already know Basketball Fan will continue bringing all the latest updates, reactions, and breakdowns. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Basketball Fan for more WNBA coverage and basketball news.